right, guys, welcome to the Strictly Sports podcast for another episode. We've got a lot to get into today. Again, just be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you have not at this point, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So we're going to start with some NFL. We've got quite a bit to get to with a little bit of a special guest interview as well in there. So let's jump right into the big matchup from Sunday, the Steelers versus the Ravens.
Yeah, so I thought it was a really good game. Entertaining to watch for sure. Right from the start, right away, you're looking to see, what's going to happen, how's this game going to start, and boom, right off the bat, pick six for the Steelers. Lamar throws a pick, and the Steelers go up 7-0 right out of the gates. After that,
I said hopping on the Spillane train.
Yeah, hey, Spillane with a nice pick there and, taking it to the house. So then, they battle back, they come back, they get a fortunate call on a very questionable late hit call there that keeps their next drive alive and allows them to come down and tie it up 7-7 when the Steelers would have got off the field. So then they're 7-7 the first quarter, or the rest of the first quarter, and even the first half was pretty quiet from the Steelers offense. Didn't have a lot going, but then they were able to crank it up a little bit in the second half, force another turnover by Lamar Jackson, getting another pick there by Highsmith to take that away and really give the Steelers an opportunity to put some more points on the board. And really, when you saw Ben start to go into more of a empty back set where he was kind of calling the plays from the line of scrimmage, they're able to get some drives together and score some points. They're at the end of the game, they come down, they're able to take the lead and get a touchdown and really put themselves in the lead. And then Lamar Jackson and the Ravens get to drive down. They get a chance there. They go for it on fourth. Lamar calls his own number. It doesn't work out. They hold him short, and then they get the ball back again after that. But it wasn't enough. They had one chance there at the end in the end zone, and the Steelers make a good defensive play to wrap up the game.
Yeah. Thanks for the synopsis there.
I was going to say, thanks for basically the synopsis. Anybody that didn't watch it just got the play-by-play breakdown. But I'm not mad at it.
That's fine.
Solid play-by-play color commentary.
Was the call on 2nd and 3 in the third quarter with 10 minutes left.
Well, I'll tell you. No.
So I think the big takeaway that so many people are talking about and is the 265 yards that the Ravens ran for on the Steelers. Mm-hmm. So it looked bad. And they outgained them by like 200 yards total. It looked like on the stat sheet, the Ravens should have won this game if not for the turnovers, which is true. The turnovers cost them the game. Lamar Jackson, essentially, because he had the 3 turnovers.
And they were fortunate. There was 2 other ones. There was a fumble that they almost recovered. It went out of bounds.
Right.
There was another one where the DB jumped the route, but it hit the ground.
Yeah. Lamar seemed to have no throwing like any caution to the wind. I mean, the ball was up for grabs. So. But I want to touch on the fact that, the Steelers got lucky with the turnovers. It was their only way to win. Look, the Ravens outplayed them, but I'll say this. I feel like the defense definitely had a game plan of we're not going to let Lamar Jackson run or throw. We will let Dobbins and Gus Edwards run. And now, do they think they were going to run for that many yards? No, I don't think that was the game plan. But I think the game plan was like, if they get their yards, that's fine. We're not going to let him beat us because he's the dynamic athlete. And I think they played essentially. I don't think they executed their game plan exactly the way they wanted to because they still ran for too many yards, and that became a real problem for them to be able to stop. But I never felt like the defense wasn't in a position where like, okay, we can stop them when they get closer to the red zone. Either get a turnover or get a stop in the red zone, which they did in the fourth quarter twice. And then the 3 turnovers throughout the game. And that was kind of like, for the most part, I feel like the Steelers, I heard a couple people say this too. Dan Orlovsky was one of them talking about that. And I was just like, that's exactly how I felt. Like, it never seemed like, okay, they're running us. But it never seemed like we I kept thinking like, we can get off the field here. Like, the Steelers can get off the field. They did, and they played it, I feel like. Now, the issue was the offense. I don't think they planned on their offense giving the ball back to that, to the Ravens offense that many times. That became a bit of an issue, but yeah, the Steelers didn't play their greatest game, and the Ravens dominated from a time of possession and yard standpoint, and the Steelers still found a way to get it done. So that's probably a pretty good feeling for them.
So Dan, briefly, I know you don't watch too many of the Steelers games aside from when they play the Eagles because you're watching Eagles games. But from your standpoint, this is one that I know that you were following because it was a big game. What were your thoughts?
My biggest thought was that I felt that Baltimore, basically like. On the offensive side of the ball, were so undisciplined that they basically handed the game over. In games like that, specifically divisional games, you have to minimize your turnovers. And there was just a lot of carelessness with the football by the entire offense. And we'll talk a little bit later more about Lamar Jackson, but you can't turn the ball over that many times against a division rival and a good team. And that really was the difference in the game. You take away those turnovers, we're talking maybe about a different outcome in that game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll close it. I'll close that discussion on the Steelers Ravens by saying this is, I've heard a lot of critics saying like, oh, the Steelers should have lost that game. The better team, lost. The Ravens should have won. Blah blah blah. But like, I'd much rather be a good team that plays poorly and finds a way to win than the team that was supposed to win and loses. I'll take that every Sunday. But Aggie made a good point about the turning point in that game. And for me, and me and Trav talked about it as well, the turning point in that game was the interception in the second half by Alex Highsmith. So we were lucky enough this week to be joined by his father, Sam Highsmith, for a brief interview segment that we just did today. So we're going to cut to that for you guys for a few minutes. All right, we are live. All right, guys. So today we are joined by Sam Highsmith, who is the father of Pittsburgh Steelers outside linebacker Alex Highsmith. So I just want to thank you again for joining us, and we really appreciate you making some time for us today.
Oh, awesome. Anytime. It's exciting to follow my son and also be a part of the Steelers Nation. It's been great.
Yeah, well, we're definitely glad to have you. So first, I'm going to start off by mentioning that Alex is about halfway through his rookie season, and he's definitely been making some impact plays already, as we saw with the huge monumental interception that he had that kind of turned that game around. So what's it been like for you so far to watch him on the biggest stage this year?
It's been great. I mean, obviously a little disappointing not getting the normal draft process after the draft, the camp. I mean, obviously we're looking forward to that, but we're just excited for him. We were so excited to actually be able to attend the game. The first game me and my wife attended was the Eagles game. Okay. And I've been at every game since then. She's taken a couple of breaks. We are headed to Dallas, and she's going to go to Pittsburgh for the Cincinnati game, and I'm going to take a weekend off from the traveling. But it's been surreal. I've said that so many times, but it's truly the best word for this.
I know you mentioned about you've been at every game since, so you were there live to see the interception this past weekend?
Yeah, the crazy thing was that we had, honestly, the best seats we've had has been in Baltimore. Me and my brother-in-law were there, and we were in that end zone. So I said, let me get the video out. So it was just truly random. So I got the camera up there, and I'm videoing, and I'm trying to follow the ball into him. I thought, oh, my God, he caught the ball. So I'm just sitting there going, go, son, go, son. So I actually tweeted that out, my video of that. And
I'm going to have – can we use that video?
Sure, I will definitely send it to you.
Email that to me because I want to play that on the episode for sure. That was a huge moment.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. That's so coincidental that you pulled the camera out at the exact right time. I hope those Baltimore Ravens fans weren't too rough on you, man. I've been in that stadium in my Steeler garb. I know it's not easy. Well, I guess with only 5,000 in the stadium, it couldn't have been too bad. So we want to take it back a little bit and talk about how Alex got started in football. But first, we were kind of curious if you had any sort of football background growing up.
It's funny you said that. Someone asked me that earlier. No, I never played football. I played a little league baseball, and I played basketball 1 year of high school. But I could jump really, really well. So I've already told a couple of people, him high pointing that ball, he got that for me. So
we were actually talking about that, how he made a great play, and I guess apparently I read that he made an adjustment from something that play that he got beat on in the first half. So that's what we like to see, especially from a Steelers player for many years to come. Yeah. So all right. So fast forward
many years ahead now. You've got a son. At what point do you introduce him to football, or did you introduce him, or at what age kind of did he start playing and get going with it as a kid?
Okay. He's been playing forever. He played 2 years of flag. He's one like most boys. We gave him balls around the house, and he loved the ball. And I think the first thing we ever did was maybe T-ball, but we did flag football the following year. And so I wouldn't be a bored parent that's out there. I helped coach, and I learned enough about the game over the years. And I coached from his year of a flag all the way up until his last year playing, which was his 6th grade year in middle school. And I was assistant. I learned enough about the game to be able to help coach those kids. And so that was something that we got to do together. And it was really, really special. Met so many other kids. Being an educator, well, you guys haven't asked, but I was a teacher and a principal administrator for 20 years. And I'm actually out now. I'm semi-retired. I'll be officially retired next year. But this involvement with kids and the coaching helped make it enjoyable for me. but I was part of that process. So, and I think that's one of the reasons now it's so much fun, so easy for me to still stay with the Steelers Nation, because I was involved with Coastal Park Warner, with the middle school, with his high school, a whole lot with Charlotte. I mean, they're like family. So, I mean, it's kind of easy transition. Really hard.
So, was there a point, I know you mentioned a lot of sports, was there a point where he kind of zeroed in as football was his sport? And at what age kind of would you say, or if there ever was a time where you were like, I think he's got a future in this game?
He never zeroed in on football, I would say, until he never specialized. He played football and basketball, middle school and high school. He played 1 year basketball in middle and 1 year basketball in high school because he grew. I mean, Alex was probably 5'6", 5'7" in 8th grade. Excuse me. Yeah, 8th grade year. He was 5'8" and a half, 5'9" as a beginning year sophomore, and all of a sudden he grew. He grew up to be. He was 6 foot as a sophomore, and then he grew to 6'2", 6'2" and a half as a senior. So he had a perfect growth spurt late. So he wasn't this tall, gangly kid. He was always smaller. Understood the game, but he played baseball through that time. So he played sports. He wasn't on varsity until his junior year. So he was just a regular athlete. He ended up starting in baseball his senior year, but he started as a junior in football. And what happened, there was one of the other inside linebackers who was in California all summer, but Alex didn't miss any of the preseason training, any of the summer training. So the coach rewarded him, let him have that starting spot. And honestly, probably like 3 or 4 games into the season, it's like he's making plays. And I remember so distinctly asking Coach Andy's, I'm sorry, I'm getting my coaches mixed up. Got to see his face. But anyway, he was one of the assistant Coach Adams. And I said, God, you think he actually has a chance to play college ball? So yeah, I think he could play. I mean, easily play Division II or so. I mean, and I was like, wow, we just got the big eyes, and I remember being excited about that.
So I know you alluded a little bit draft day being kind of not the full experience because of, everything going on, the obvious, but what was it like? What was the expectation level on that day for where he might get taken and then ultimately to get taken by the Steelers? What was kind of the feeling there?
Well, I'll be honest, it was very exciting. What we'll call him, he made his money at the combine. I don't know if you saw any of the film. He did amazingly well. We were overjoyed about how well he did. He came in, and when he ran his 40, he actually had the fastest of all the defensive linemen. He ended up having the 3rd fastest time. Then he got in the position drills. He was almost flawless out there. He looked so athletic and skilled, exceeded what I was hoping he would be. And I have high expectations for my son, but I was still going, he'll do okay. He looked great. So after that, that's the first time Pittsburgh reached out. General Manager Colbert was at the Shrine Bowl. He liked what he saw at the Shrine Bowl. But before COVID, he was supposed to have an in-house visit with Pittsburgh, supposed to have one with Atlanta, with Arizona. I'm missing one. I can't think of the other. But they ended up doing a Zoom meeting, and I remember it well. Of course, Tomlin and Mr. Colbert, and I was sitting there. I said, Cal, can I sneak upstairs and listen? Because I always have loved Mike Tomlin's voice. So I opened the door and snuck upstairs, man. And hearing him, I thought, oh, my God, this is real. He's talking to Mike Tomlin. But we were anticipating, based on the pre-draft conversations, there was a good chance he'd be 3rd round. In the back of my mind, I said, I'm not going to be disappointed if he slips to the 4th. But we felt very confident he'd be going by 4th round. Being a day 2 person, that was just so exciting. We knew 2nd round wasn't going to happen. So we started listening. Some of the teams had an interest. We knew Miami had a lot of picks. So when Miami came up, we were like, okay, and they didn't pick him. There were a couple other teams that we kind of thought might have interest. But then as it got going, as it getting like in the 80s and 90s, I remember looking, so Alex, 102. It's Pittsburgh down there. And I can't remember the team before that was also interested. And I remember saying, don't pick him. And they didn't. So I'm like, oh, my gosh. Philly was also real, real close. We had a feeling to be one of those 2. And it was, I think it was New England's pick. I remember exactly. We were all sitting there on the couch. And the phone rang. He looked down, and I didn't see it, but he saw a Pennsylvania number. He told everybody, shh, shh, shh. I'm like, okay. So we listened. And I forget who called him first. I want to say Colbert called him first, but then he talked to Tomlin. And it kind of sunk in then, man. It was like, oh, my God, this really is going to happen. With the best tradition-rich organization. I mean,
Yeah.
Like I said, we're super excited. I love seeing you interact on Twitter as well with Steeler Nation. And it's kind of, I was telling my brother, he's not really on Twitter or social media much, but I was telling him, you know, it's kind of a unique family on Twitter of people who kind of, you know, come, usually it's a couple of days leading up to the game on Sunday. You'll start to see people start posting a few things like, oh, get to 8-0, like, oh, it's time. Like, oh, we got Baltimore this week. And then it kind of like, it builds all up. And then game day, it's just the back and forth of everybody going in on it. And I can say that Steeler Nation has definitely welcomed you with open arms, and Alex as well, and your whole family. So we are glad to have you.
It has been a blessing. You know, we're a family of faith, and I think his faith really has got him his place. I mean, told him have hard work, but I mean, we have things, and he has things planned that we're going to do outside of football, and I think this is going to be the platform, and we're just excited.
That's awesome.
And ready to be 8-0, and
again, we really appreciate you joining us and giving us some time and answering some questions for us. And
thanks for coming on. Thanks a lot, Mr. Highsmith.
no problem. And I had to put this up
there
here.
That's
right. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right,
appreciate the invite. All right. Have a good one.
All right, guys. And thank you again to Sam Highsmith for joining us for that interview. We really appreciate your time and your insight on the background of Alex and his journey to the NFL. But let's talk a little bit more about Lamar Jackson. I know we touched on it briefly. You know, the things that I'm seeing is what everybody's saying is he can't perform in the big games and in the highest games. You know, you saw it against Kansas City where they kind of got waxed earlier in the season. You saw it when they lost to the Titans in the playoffs last year, and then you saw it again on Sunday where, like you said, Trav, he single-handedly kind of cost him that game.
Yeah, and to me, it's like that's the big talking point is he can't perform in the big games. I don't see it so much that way as I see it as a style of play issue. It goes back to what we alluded to when we broke down the Kansas City-Baltimore game, and all of us kind of are in pretty much agreement with this, which is the pocket passing ability. I was watching a guy talk about one of the NFL Network guys who's pretty, I think, a former player, and he said something along the lines of, the Ravens should, and they kind of criticized the Ravens, like, why'd they get away from the run? The Ravens committed to running the ball in that game against the Steelers. Like, they didn't really get away from it. You can't just run the ball every single play. But this guy basically was saying the Ravens should never run a pass play that doesn't have some sort of run threat or the threat of a run as a part of the play. And like that's what makes Lamar Jackson so great was so great last year, to win an MVP, and why they were so good is not that he could throw the ball so well, but the combination of being able to run and then the threat and having to have teams worry about their good running game with their running backs and the read option game and then him running, and then those two threats combine to open up the passing game. If you've got a quarterback that you can't – and the person who said this is absolutely right, because he has to have the threat of either the run, the give, or the running himself to be a good passer. If you have a quarterback who can't just naturally drop back at least some percentage of the games and throw, I just don't see how it's going to be sustainable. So to me, it's not that he plays bad really plays that much different in the big games. It's the fact that the big games are the teams that won't let you get away with just being one-dimensional or a certain style of play, that you have to have a little more diversity in that. He's going to have to learn how to just drop back and throw more accurately and make better reads. I just don't think he's sustainable as a good NFL quarterback, because like I said earlier too, when we were talking about it, at some point they're not going to have this good in his career when the coaching change, or maybe God forbid he plays for another team. They're not going to have the O-line. They're not going to have the structure in place. Baltimore has catered to him. Like, they committed fully to the read option and going everything last year, and that was why he was so good. But eventually defenses are going to catch up, and the other issue of can he stay healthy running it that much, he's not going to be able to – I just don't think it's sustainable unless he becomes a better pocket passer, and I don't think that really is ever going to happen. So I just think that there's kind of like an expiration on him being a good quarterback.
Yeah, I think you're seeing this a lot in the NFL right now, and I think the biggest thing with Lamar Jackson, it's bad mechanics mixed with like a lack of ball security, like someone trying to make a play every single time he has the ball in his hands. And it's because he is a playmaker, but the problem is at the quarterback position, you have to be able to do more than that. You have to be able to be kind of like that game manager, which has that negative side to it, but also you need to have it. So you need to be able to know, like, hey, it's 1st and 10, and we play action, and hey, the defense knew it was coming. So maybe I'll try and run for a couple of yards, but you know what? If it doesn't look like it's there, I'm going to get rid of the ball. I'm not going to do something stupid with the football. The other thing is, I don't feel like he has the ability or has shown this ability where he has good chemistry with any of his wide receivers, any outside of somebody in the middle. He's really good at throwing the ball in the middle of the field. But one of the things I've noticed with Lamar Jackson, if it's not a tight end or the slot receiver, his accuracy goes way down. So you know what defenses do? They shrink the field. They start playing the middle of the field and make him make those throws on the outside. And he doesn't have that level of accuracy, or at least hasn't shown it yet, where I would ever be afraid of him. So if I'm playing that team, I'm doing my very best. And I think this is what the Steelers did, to let him not be the guy who beats you with his legs, but makes him be the guy who beats you with his arm.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what teams are going to do. I mean, nobody's scared of his arm. Like, nobody is scared of to say, oh, if we let him sit back there and sling it, we're going to get killed by this guy. No, they're not. So they're like Trav said earlier, we'll give up the run to him or the running backs to a point to say, okay, as long as we just do that and we bend but don't break when it gets down to the red zone, we're not going to give up a lot of points because this guy can't throw that well. So, and one thing that Steve Young said, I was listening to, and he said, part of it's on Lamar, but part of it's also on the Ravens. If you want this guy to be a guy who can go down at the end of the game, and when you need a touchdown drive and you need this guy to throw it down the field and like make plays at the end of the game because you're behind, but you haven't put that kind of stuff into your offense where you're built on just run and have dink and dunk passes. And how's he going to learn? How's he going to get better at that? If you're constantly staying in this type of offense, you're not giving him a chance, or you're not growing your offense. You're not going to grow him that way either. So it's not, Steve Young was saying, it's not all on Lamar. Part of it's on the Ravens too.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We could talk about it for a while, but I'll close with two statements. One that I saw was that Lamar Jackson, in his 2 starts against the Steelers, he has 7 turnovers in 2 starts against the Steelers, but he has 15 turnovers and 27 starts against all our teams. So maybe it's a thing where the Steelers have his number. Maybe he has this built fear against the Steelers because he doesn't perform that poorly every week. But we'll see. And another thing is, you got to love, as a Steelers fan, we're just going to throw this in there, you got to love Mike Tomlin saying, we respect Lamar Jackson, but we do not fear him. So,
classic Mike Tomlin soundbite right there.
Yeah.
I think you guys actually have your defense built. I just want to say this real quick. Your defense is built to play against, your guys in your division. And he's one of the guys you have to play twice a year. So I think you guys are actually, like, from a personnel standpoint, have the guys you need to play against them well.
Yeah. So let's take a look around the rest of the NFL from this week. Does anybody have anything that stood out to them?
I'm pretty sure we're all really excited to talk about the NFC East and all the awesome things that are going on there, right?
Yeah.
The graveyard division.
Yeah, that awesome Sunday night football game that was played.
We're just going to blow past that and go on to an actual football game.
We'll definitely pass that. I don't know if you guys watched. Actually, I think that we were talking a little bit about Saints-Bears. One of the things I thought was funny, like, people were giving Troy Aikman such a hard time about how much he hates the Bears quarterback situation and Nick Foles. And one of the things I did notice, too, was watching that game, It was like Fox was trying to force a quarterback change on the Bears. Yeah. They kept running the camera over to the sidelines, and like there wasn't even any like fight going on or anything. It was just like they kept looking over there like expecting someone to walk over in Nick Foles' ears and be like, "Hey, you're benched," and "Hey, Mitch, get warmed up." But like I was like, I don't think that's on the horizon. And I know Nick Foles hasn't played great. I think he's still playing a little bit better than Trubisky, but Aikman was going in hard on how bad the quarterback situation is there and how bad on offense they are. But behind all that, it was a great game. The Saints are still just finding ways to win right now, I feel like. And they're getting it done, though. Michael Thomas, they got the big showdown, I think it's this Sunday night against the Bucs. Mm-hmm. And they're looking like Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders get back. So maybe we'll finally get to see that Saints team and what they really look like. But it was a good game this past weekend.
The thing about the Bears is like, they were – why would they make a change when, one, they were in that game? They were pretty much in that game most of the way. They were winning. I think they were up 13-3 at one point.
Yeah, not because of Foles, but to your point, yeah, they were.
And again, it's like you said, Trevor, I saw it on Twitter as well. It's like the media is painting this narrative of like, oh, well, Mitch never lost a game. Why did he get benched? Like this, and that. I'm like obviously anybody, can spin it whichever way they want, but it's like why – I thought the same thing too, because I watched a good bit of that second half, and it seemed like they were just like – trying to egg on the whole narrative of like, oh, quarterback controversy, like what's it going to be? It's like, dude, they're in this game. Like they were winning at one point. Like why do they care so much?
I think one of the games we should mention, and I didn't personally have a chance to watch it, but was the Packers getting beat by the Vikings. Yeah. And I know it's a divisional, game, and I don't think the Vikings are as bad as their record shows. I think we know that from years past, but just the fact that Green Bay now, like 2 out of the last 3 weeks, has kind of been there. They are the team we thought they were last year, in my opinion. I think they came out early and showed some stuff, but now it's like they're regressing, or that's who they've always been, and they just kind of overachieve. But I feel like they look exactly like they looked last year, and you don't know what you're going to get from a week to week. They could be this team that puts up 40 points and makes you look stupid, or a team that can only put up 22 against the Vikings in a really bad defense to this point this year and get beat by a 1-5 team. So,
yeah, I mean, they are. I agree with you, Dan. I remember 2 or 3 weeks ago when they got blown out by whoever they got blown out by, and we were talking about the alarming blowout games with them. But now it's starting to look like last year, man, where it's like they'll probably win 11 or 12 games still, but do you really respect them? They look soft. They look like you can run on them when you need to really run on them. I think Dalvin Cook ran for 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he ran all over them all day.
Yeah, okay. So, they just look soft. They don't look like a team that you can trust in the playoffs to go really deep and win, or maybe, somewhat, but not to win it all. And the other big upset, man, was looking at Tennessee, man. 2 weeks in a row now. Obviously, you lose to Pittsburgh. No harm in that. And you come back and you fight. Good game. But now you come back and you lose to Cincinnati. And I know Cincinnati's not as bad as their record indicates. Joe Burrow is really playing some really good ball. But that's disappointing to see Tennessee. I don't know really where they're going to go from here. Maybe they'll start to slide a little bit more. You got the Colts on their heels in that division, or maybe even with them now. So that's a tough loss for them. One they probably couldn't really afford.
Yeah, there was a thing too. I was wondering if it was a little bit of just hangover from the tough game against the Steelers, like battling back, little bumps and bruises. But another thing too is with that division, like you said, Trav, the Colts and the Titans, 4 out of their next 5 games, they play 5-win teams. I think they had to go through the NFC West if I remember through some of those teams. And another one for me was also the Browns losing. They fall to 5-3, so it's like their playoff hopes are a little bit in jeopardy.
I wasn't surprised at that though. It wasn't like a surprise.
No, it's not like they lost to a bad team because Oakland's good.
But it was a critical loss for them.
It was a really windy, gusty day, and I know they were all talking about how much of it. So I think that played a big part in it. I'm not saying they would have beat the Raiders if it wasn't, but the Browns need to pick it up here. They're starting to slide.
I think the other one too. There was one other game that was a surprising loss, and that was the Rams kind of getting beat down by the Dolphins the way they did.
Defensively, they lost that game on special teams and defense.
Yeah, Tua got his first start. Nothing really to write home about with that, but
he didn't really win the game.
He threw for 92 yards.
Yeah, 12 for 22, 93 and a touchdown. So nothing to write home. That was defense and special teams. Yeah.
Yep, they had the big turnovers.
But I was just surprised at the Rams. Like, that's a couple games.
People are starting to say the same thing, though, like that we were kind of questioning is they've only beaten the NFC East.
Right, NFC East. Are they a fake one?
I think
they beat the Bears. They beat the Bears, too.
Yeah,
again,
the Bears.
We don't believe in the Bears.
We don't believe in the Bears. I don't.
All right, so let's move into some college football. We're not going to waste any time on Penn State getting shellacked by Ohio State, but we do want to talk about the biggest news is, with Trevor Lawrence testing positive for COVID. He's out 2 weeks, and Dabo came out saying that he will be out for the Notre Dame game. So Notre Dame is ranked 4th right now, I believe, and Clemson's ranked 1 overall. I know that Lawrence went down as the favorite for the Heisman now. He pretty much came off as the top betting favorite. What are you guys thinking for that game? Do you think that Clemson with a new guy, the new quarterback, freshman, that he'll find a way to get it done in a big moment, or is it going to be too big for him?
I think that they still have a good chance to win the game. Based on obviously the BC game, they got off to a bad start. They were down 28-13 at halftime. But in that second half, that freshman quarterback kind of got it together a little bit. He started throwing the ball. They relied on ETN a lot, which, hey, you got that guy in your backfield. Why wouldn't you? That guy, he had over 200 all-purpose yards between, running and receiving. So, and their defense kind of buckled down a little bit more in the second half too. So, obviously you lose Trevor Lawrence, that's a big deal. There's going to be drop off there. You got a freshman, but I still think they have enough talent on that team to at least, I'm not going to say that they don't have a chance to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, the big thing for me, I do think Clemson has a chance to win this game. They're a talented team. They can probably rely on their running game a little bit more. They have a good defense. So I think they can win this game. I think the big question for me, and kind of the thing I wanted to pose in this argument, is if they do lose, how much should that affect their ranking and their ability to be in the college football playoff, knowing that Trevor Lawrence was out due to COVID? So where does that – what do you guys think? What should the penalty be if they lose a game? Should it just kind of be like, hey, they're out of it, they lost, every team has to deal with this, or – do they get a little bit of a pass because it wasn't an injury, but it's more of the COVID conversation?
I think the committee will give them a lot of grace if they lose a close game to Notre Dame and they go undefeated the rest of the way. Depending on how it plays out, I'm not saying they'll definitely still get in. The committee will realize, like, that was unlucky, that was unfortunate, and I think they will be given some grace for that.
I think it's their job.
No question.
It is their job to consider those
because
things.
that's legitimate. They've done that before with injuries to certain guys missing, so they'll definitely do it with this. But if you look at it, like, if you're Clemson, I mean, I'm not really going to cry too much for Clemson. You drop one 5-star quarterback, you pick up another. This guy's a 5-star recruit. So, and yeah, he's a true freshman or whatever. It was his first start. If you look at the way they play, like, man, they were down 18 at half or whatever it was. But that 14-point swing on the Travis Etienne fumble, they're about to go in for 7. Now they pick it up and run it back the other way for 7. That kind of made that game at halftime look different than it should have. They weren't really getting outplayed that much by BC. And then the second half, they get it figured out. I think the kid got his legs under him, and now he's ready to go into Notre Dame. I give them more than just like a chance to win. I don't know who the betting favorite is, but I would bet Clemson's probably still the favorite.
Right. Yeah, that's my thought too. Like, that team is just so talented, and really good coaches like Dabo Swinney can take a quarterback that might be a freshman, get him prepared, probably take the game plan and maybe simplify it a little bit, and just, that's one of the things with these top-notch programs like Alabama, Clemson. When another guy has to step up, they typically do.
Yeah, because they're bringing in another 5-star.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so just to update you, Trav, it says it looks like Clemson is a 5.5 point. That sounds stupid. 5.5 favorite.
5.5.
5.5 favorite.
Wow, I didn't think it would be that high. I figured they'd still be a favorite. Maybe
they
3.
said
that actually, like 2 to 3 points.
That's a 0.5 increase from what it was, I guess, a couple of days ago. So
is it at Notre Dame?
I do not know, but I will say this: that, like, let's look at Notre Dame. They're a team that is pretty highly, I would say, overrated every year. They come in here. I know they're playing ACC teams now because they're in the ACC for football. But there's been many years in the past where, they, by name and by stature, that they get these high ratings and then they never really do anything. The one year they got beat in the national championship many years ago, I didn't think they deserved to be in there. But I will say this: I have watched a good amount of Notre Dame football because they're always on NBC. And I don't really buy into the Ian Book hype. There was a lot of hype on him when he first came into the league, that he was going to be like a solid, possible NFL prospect. But then they ended up benching him because they went with a different guy one year, and then now he's back as a starter, like he re-earned it. So I don't buy a ton into him, and I think that Dabo is going to have his defense like going. Like I would put my money on Clemson as well.
So one thing I do want to talk about college football that's not necessarily related to Clemson, but I just want to say that although we're not talking the full Penn State game, I was extremely impressed with Justin Fields. And last year I would have said I wasn't that impressed with him, but after watching the game, his accuracy and his knowledge of where to put the ball, and I really feel like after Lawrence, he's probably the solid number 2 quarterback coming out of college. And especially with the way the NFL is being played with the Russell Wilsons and the Kyler Murrays, I'm actually pretty excited to see what type of NFL prospect he can be.
Yeah, when they took Trevor Lawrence as the Heisman favorite, it's between him and Mac Jones, Alabama's quarterback. But I mean, I feel like it's interesting quarterbacks that come out. Is it
because they've been playing longer? Like, they're just disqualifying Justin Fields because his first 2 games he only had 1 incompletion against Nebraska. And then we saw what he did against Penn State, where he basically tore us up. So how is he not in the conversation?
Oh, he's in the conversation. It's between him and it was Trevor Lawrence as the front runner, but now it's between Mac Jones and Justin Fields.
Yeah, the last Ohio State.
My bad. I thought you were saying
work out too well.
It was Lawrence and Mac Jones. My bad.
No. But yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Mac Jones. I'm not a huge fan of Alabama personally, but so I don't really watch a lot of their games. You're kind of just expecting to win. But for me, Alabama's kind of interesting with college with their quarterbacks because they're not usually known for their quarterbacks, but then you have Tua come out as, an NFL prospect. But like, you guys off the top of your head, Trev is pretty good at usually pulling these things out of his butt. But off the top of your head, can you think of any notable like Alabama quarterbacks that are in the NFL or that were over the years? Yeah, they don't really strike me as an NFL.
Not like legit starters for any long period of time.
Yeah.
Greg McElroy got a shot for a little while, and then he was a backup, and now he's in the booth.
I'm hoping Tua will be. I'd like to see the lefty work out, but
yeah, I mean, he's got a skill set that can do it.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
want to make one bold prediction before we close here tonight.
Yep.
And I'm making a bold prediction that Penn State loses to Maryland on Saturday. Tua's brother plays for Maryland, and he looked pretty good against Minnesota. And I actually think that he's probably the better quarterback in that game, and I got Maryland beating Penn State.
All right, that's a nice bold prediction. I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see how Penn State if they can turn their year around. At least maybe I don't know if bowl games are a thing this year, but if they can at least go 500. So let's go ahead and I know we didn't talk about this, but let's go ahead and pick the Thursday night game. We got Packers at Niners.
Yeah, I saw it was
That should be a pretty decent game.
Who we got?
Trav was like, no.
Well, it would have been before Jimmy G and Kittle are out for like 8 weeks each or whatever of the season for Kittle. So now it's done now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. The Packers got some work to do to get their ship righted. They still don't have a running back. I mean, they have like 2 practice squad guys as their running backs, and they still don't have Alan Lazard back.
All right. Well, I'll lead off with my pick of 27-13 Packers.
All right.
I'll go 30-17 Packers.
Yeah, it's a Thursday night game. They're kind of like a toss-up to what you're going to get. You're either going to get a good game or a big sloppy game. But you know what? I'm going to make the Niners be a little bit more competitive. Nick Mullins looks like he has a little more chemistry than Jimmy G had with some guys. And I'm going to get the rumor mill started here and get the Jimmy G. Is he out as the 49ers? Well, 49ers was a surprising win, 31-27.
I'm actually going to go 49ers with a 27-20 win.
Nice.
So I think short week. I think that the Packers can't run the ball. You get less game preparation for passing. He still doesn't have that many receivers. I know he's got Devontae back. But we'll see. It should be a good game to watch.
Somehow it's always me and Trav and Juddy and Dan.
Not always. My better judgment tells me to go with the Packers because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to lose twice in a row.
I'm the same way, but
I
for
still
the sake
feel like for some reason Thursday nights are just weird games.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know what can happen.
And you've seen the 49ers, right? You've seen them lose to Philly and then go beat like another good team the week after. So like, who are they? Really, I don't know who they are.
Yep. So I guess we'll find out. But thanks again for joining us, everybody. Again, special thanks to Sam Highsmith for joining us for the interview.
Thanks, Sam.
Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys.